Hello, hello, hello. I am talking to you from my Monday morning Pacific time on March 14th and wanting to share a little bit about what has been coming in for the current energies. And also a kind of an interesting, fun little thing around the body stuff, the biology stuff at the cellular level. So the energies right now, kind of yesterday, today, kind of this week, have a very interesting quality. And this is kind of leading up to the full moon, which is on the 18th, I believe. And I don't remember the time offhand, but you can look that up if you're curious. And so there's there's a ton of kind of things are shifting and kind of in transit or in between. So there's a very kind of in-betweenness energy right now, which you may be experiencing in a variety of different, kind of related ways. So some may be feeling kind of voidal, some may be feeling sort of interstitial, some may be feeling kind of just sort of sort of a waiting or a limbo phase, etc. There's a million different ways that we could be experiencing this. I was experiencing it yesterday as a sort of like, it felt like I was sort of encased in a kind of clear molasses kind of substance where it was sort of challenging to move, not in a painful way at all, just kind of like, okay, I'm just sort of stuck here. And it was very funny. And then I was called very explicitly to be outside in the sun for a specific period of time. And so I was outside, and fortunately it was a very cloudy day, but the clouds cleared for a brief period, giving me that time to kind of have my face towards the sun. And there were I felt many kind of codes coming in through that, and I wasn't unpacking, if you will, kind of the information in those sort of light packets at that time in my awake awareness, and nor did I feel any need to. It was just kind of like, let them all in, and they'll open up later. Sort of stock up all those little presents inside for later. So some of those presents started opening up overnight, and so I was awakened in the kind of the middle of the night with a kind of 11:11 actually, which was sort of fun, with a very specific clear vision. And I'm not usually woken up with this kind of stuff, but in this case, what I heard as I woke up was sort of, here was the vision was right there, and then the information was, record this for yourself now. And we woke you up, and by we I mean like all of my beingness and all of my sort of support system, so my cosmic self and my kind of council that I work with, that I am part of, and so we want you to record this so that it's available in your human awake awareness tomorrow as well. So the vision was was my cells at the cellular level, so that the cell membrane, which is a plasma membrane, is what it's called, that the membrane itself had in recent days, and may stay in this place for a few more days, had really kind of thickened, had gotten wider, and I could sort of see this visual of kind of the little cell bubble and the little cell membrane around it, and that it had gotten thicker, sort of fatter and wider, and that it felt very fluid, and that it had gotten wider and was filling with more fluid as a mechanism of support and protection for what is inside the cell. And that this was in direct response to energetics coming in to the planet photons, neutrinos, plasma, blah, 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 all the different things coming into the planet and coming from the sun, as well as coming from other stars and kind of the broader kind of cosmic pieces coming in. So that this was a useful mechanism that I should allow. And some context within my kind of human experience was that I have been doing some sort of shifting and tweaking a little bit around certain things I'm doing in support of my body and of my biology related to, it doesn't matter what it's related to, and I was feeling a sort of puzzlement over a recent handful of days where all of the things that I was doing, that I was guided to do, that I was just listening into my body telling me what to do around what to eat and the timing and the rhythm of eating and other activities, having kind of the opposite effect, it felt, than what I had expected would occur. And so I was sort of like, why is that the case? Like, well, that's odd. It doesn't make sense. Moments of frustration, of course, as well, because there was sort of, I was interested and excited by the desired outcome and not happy to have the opposite. Right? Hello, welcome to human. And so this, what I heard was, this is why you were having that experience. It isn't causally related. It wasn't your behaviors that you were following kind of the sort of the directives, if you will, of the body, that was causing that opposite. It was this other piece. And so just continue doing more and more of the very specific pieces that you're being guided for in terms of supporting in your own biology, and don't worry about the kind of immediate sense of effects in the macro physical. Meaning like the, like the body I think of as kind of the macro physical, where it's like, oh, I'm feeling my human body, and how does my stomach feel today, or my legs, or my shoulder, whatever, right? Whereas kind of the micro physical is more at that sort of cellular level, or mitochondrial level, or even particle level. So this was very fun, very delightful information to receive. And so I did a little tiny, 90-second recording to myself just to kind of anchor and in case I would forget in the morning, although I didn't, and went back to sleep. And then slept well, continued to sleep well for most of the night. In the very early morning, I actually had more very specific, interesting guidance around, some of you saw that I had this sort of fun Saturday afternoon at the Crystal Fair, where there was a bunch of wholesale pricing available, and a bunch of little crystal beings had said to me, come down to this, and made me aware that the fair even existed, which wasn't on my radar. And so popped down there and brought home many new fun crystal friends to the family. And you saw maybe those pictures that I shared on my socials about the cats, also kind of checking out the new family members. Anyway, one of these is a really cool large quartz from Madagascar, and has these interesting little kind of gold flecks in it. I don't know what those are in human terms, but it's an incredibly interesting, potent being, and bringing in very interesting energies. And on our first night, wanted to sleep with me. So I was like, okay, fine. So, it was just sort of that created some really fun experiences, and I could feel this vibration throughout my body for a couple of hours. So there wasn't a lot of sleeping going on. And then finally I was like, okay, enough. I can't take any more, and sort of put this being to the side table and went to sleep. So early this morning had this kind of guidance around working with this crystal. And so was working with this crystal at several different points in my head and in my neck. And I had woken up with some stress, some tension, some pressure, and a feeling of kind of like too much. This happens to me often, where I wake up with this feeling of kind of too much like swelling, or like too much liquidy swelling in my head area, and have had various different little tweaks around that over recent times that have helped. For example, I hear someone might find this of interest. I recently changed the orientation of my bed so that my head, instead of while I'm in my bed, my head kind of pointing north, my head is now pointing east. And that has made an enormous difference with that kind of feeling of pressure in my head in the morning that had been building up. And the kind of head facing north is very traditionally believed to be ideal in, I believe, Chinese feng shui traditions. But there are also kind of Indian traditions that say facing east is better. I don't know. Some of the theories that people have around this to try to understand it have to do with the sense of kind of the pull magnetically of iron in the body, creating kind of too much iron flow towards the head when one is facing generally northward, and that this is optimized by facing eastward. I don't know, there felt like there was something correct in that, even if those words and human understanding weren't exactly accurate for me specifically, for my own body. So I'm not telling anyone that you should do this, but if you're having kind of issues with your head in the morning, you could play around with that. I just played around with it by sort of sleeping sideways on my bed one night and found that was much better. The corollary also is if your head is facing south and you're often waking up feeling drained, then you might also want to try this kind of facing east instead. And the facing east is recommended more for northern hemisphere. So if you're southern hemisphere and you're feeling some of this, you might try west facing. Okay, so that was a little commercial on this whole sleeping piece. So the crystal was just working with me, and I don't really have words for what was happening, but it was really helpful, and I just felt much lighter and clearer, and then slept again for another hour or two, and then was up for my regular morning time, and I'm here now. So what I want to bring to you about the kind of the energies, this sort of interesting time right now, as I described, this feeling of kind of being in a, whether you're feeling that kind of, like I was feeling, of sort of that kind of clear molasses feeling, or you're feeling that in-betweenness, or that kind of not sure about kind of that kind of voidal, not really voidal, it's not voidal so much, although we may go in and out of moments of voidal as a support to us, because actually it can be very tense for the human to be in an extended period of kind of nothingness. and not that there's nothingness, but that feeling of ambiguity basically is a way in which the human is going to be experiencing these energies for a couple of days at least, and that can be really frustrating and hard for us. We don't do well with tolerating ambiguity typically as humans, and in fact one of the kind of hallmarks of developing greater emotional maturity is the capacity to handle and tolerate ambiguity. So this will give you opportunity, whether you wanted it or not, to lean into that. And actually, as I say, to lean into that, the best way to deal with it is actually to lean back, to really let your human lean back and just move your attention backwards as a human. Just lean back. Let the cosmic self kind of come through and flow through you and kind of run the show as much as possible. Sort of float, lean back, feel your cosmic self kind of holding you like a big giant kind of golden being that is holding you in its lap, almost sort of like you're sitting in a big giant golden throne. But really it's this kind of giant cosmic being that is you, that is holding you and can kind of take care of things through this little phase. And that can make it actually an incredibly enjoyable time. So, prepare to enjoy it. Prepare to be carried. Allow yourself to be kind of carried through. Look for opportunities to practice this when you start to feel kind of tense or irritable, or you start to make assumptions about what's going on with somebody else. If they are being tense or irritable and you're making a story about, oh, they're crabby with me, or they're thinking this thing about me, or oh, how dare they about me. It has nothing to do with you. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with you anyway, but it really has nothing to do with you. Like, it doesn't even have anything to do with them, right? Like, it's just hard to be in this phase. So it can also be really lightful. So allow that, really just kind of lean back, build time into your calendar. If you have a lot of things going on, build little tiny reminders into your calendar that just say, remember to lean back. Like, that's all you need, right? Like, put a big sticker up on your computer, use a Post-it that says lean back. And just, oh, that's right, I'm going to lean back. And literally, physically also, look at your posture. Where are you leaning forward in a way that is not great for your posture, or that is too grippy? Like, ooh, I'm leaning in. Yeah, gimme. Tell me. I want the info. I want to do the thing. Yeah. Give me the thing. Where's the thing? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, right? Lean back. And when you're kind of leaned back a little bit, like I'm sitting in a chair right now and I'm kind of leaning back, but also I can have much more room inside when I lean back just a little bit. I have more upright posture. My shoulders are really down from my ears. They're wide and open. I have more room between them. I'm creating more room in my chest, both kind of horizontally as well as kind of vertically through my spine. And this really supports the big heart space reworkings with these radical expansions in the heart space that have been going on for some time and are continuing for some as well. Remember to put all of this in the context of we are moving through this passageway time, and we can get very, very impatient, or alternatively sort of forgetful about what just happened a few days ago or a few weeks ago, because we normalize so quickly. This is really good that we normalize so quickly, and also can create challenges for our human way of experiencing things. It is just sort of a part of the human condition that we normalize immediately to circumstances, or very rapidly, I should say, not immediately, to circumstances. And from a neutral perspective, this is a really cool superpower. When your circumstances are very difficult, then this is a problem, because you normalize to them and then you begin to think they're how things are supposed to be, right? And so moving out of that is very challenging. And sort of the unpleasant metaphor for that is, the frog being slowly boiled to death in water that is getting increasingly hot, but because he's in the water, he doesn't realize how hot and unpleasant it's becoming. So if your external circumstances currently feel unpleasant to you, then this may be very relevant. Now, if you have created, some positive, delightful external circumstances, even certain things that are kind of coming and going, then focus there, right? And let those become the normal. And sometimes when those become the normal, this is particularly true for those of you who are really moving very fast in your personal evolutionary journey, in your evolutionary leap, we can get hungry for where's the next new level of awareness. And when the next new level of awareness isn't immediately available, we can get very sort of cranky and toddler tantrumy and kind of like, meh, where's the thing? And sometimes we then internalize that as like, oh no, what am I doing wrong? Oh no, I've screwed up. Oh no, blah, blah. So no, you haven't, right? So you can normalize in a way that isn't useful to you, or that's not what I want to say. It is useful to you to normalize, but you can forget that where you're at is all what I'm saying. Like, it's a habit that comes back to internalize it in a negative way. So the reason that the normalization can be such an incredible superpower for where we're going evolutionarily is that it is one of the kind of precursors to really being able to experience your multidimensionality, your pan-dimensionality, really, as we're moving into increasing access to all your dimensional access. But one of the sort of ways in which your physical three-dimensional human experiences multidimensionality is a sense of being so in the quote-unquote now that you actually are able to kind of access many different times at once. This is sort of like this sort of time-walking, time-hopping thing. And that really, you can't really do that unless you're really here right now. And the normalizing to the new now that you're creating rapidly for yourself lets you more quickly kind of be in the new capacities and upgrades that you are opening within yourself. Now, remember, this is not about kind of transcendence in a sort of ascension, leaving your body, leaving the earth. this is a deepening into the embodied expression of that. It is the both and of bringing the stars, if you will, into your embodied experience here, bringing yourself closer and closer into Earth, into connection with Earth as being, into connection with all of the beings that are here, the sort of the immanence, if you will, sort of that many people enjoy kind of looking at the kind of relationship between sort of the transcendent and the immanent. And immanence and transcendence is kind of an interesting polarity to play with, if you like to play with that stuff. For me, it's just that, the both and it's the embodied expression of the both and that we are here to do. Okay, I've been talking a little longer than I realized I would, but I wanted you to have this support, particularly for this week, but I also am hearing that this sort of support and guidance is relevant for outside of this particular time period that I'm speaking to for many in the future. So I think this will be a very useful support for many as they're moving through different points in their own journey and have these experiences. And then lastly, I need to tell you, because this is happening again right now as I'm talking to you, so I have been having in the last 24 hours just so more than I can count visits from giant bald eagles. So I've been having these sort of visits. So yesterday there were this huge bald eagle was sort of flying right by my window multiple times. And this is not a normal experience for me. I do live in an area where we have a number of them, but it is not a normal experience for me to see them right by this window. So flying right by the window and then flying back the other way and then flying, like, I don't know, a half dozen times, this huge, incredibly enormous eagle flying this way. And then this morning, several times, there's actually been a pair of them, and I almost never see them with another one, doing the same thing a couple of times, and then just one more again. So very interesting messages from this beautiful bald eagle. And I'm hearing, as I'm kind of tapping into that a little bit, there are some personal messages for me that I will just kind of keep and integrate. But also, I think this is very much related to some of this. I'm hearing the sort of the symbolism of the way in which the bald eagle is the sort of so-called great American eagle, although it has, of course, been many, 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 many things in many cultures long before the, barely 2 seconds of existence that America, the United States of America, has existed. But we, of course, are in the early stages of the, they're both back now. Okay, wow, that's intense. Of the U.S. Pluto return. And I'm not, the astrology expert at all, but I like to play around in it. And so those of you who enjoy astrology at all may be aware, and I tend to play with it at the planetary level, not the individual level, may be aware that we are in this huge Pluto return for the U.S. and that it is shaking up lots of things. So just some awareness, perhaps, that some of the tension around the ambiguity that people may be experiencing may somehow be related to this Pluto return for the U.S. And I'm not having more on that right now for you. But it was very interesting as I was saying that, and kind of my human was sort of like, really? We're going to go here? And then immediately both those eagles flew over the top of the window again. So I'm like, okay, that's what we're sharing. So there it is. So hopefully this is very fun for you, and that you're able to just really have a fun time floating around. And if the cellular vision that I shared speaks to you, then work with that. But I'm also hearing that even if it doesn't particularly resonate individually, the kind of the opportunity to encase yourself in bubble wrap, so to speak, in a lightful bubble wrap today, tomorrow, this week, I think is very good move to just kind of put yourself in a big, giant, extra thick golden membrane around your beingness, and just let that sort of floating carry you along through this little period, this little phase in the passageway, and you'll have a much better experience. So that kind of leaning back into that golden cosmic support, and let it wrap around you and create a beautiful golden bubble membrane around you, feels very on point. And I'm going to leave you with that fantastic image and encourage you to drop into that energy and that imagery as often as possible in these days. I love you so much. Thank you so much for your light in the world and this opportunity to connect in this way and many others. Bye.